During a family dinner, my sister-in-law leaned across the table, smiled as if we were sharing a secret, and whispered in my ear, "I'm carrying your husband's child." I smiled back, passed her the mashed potatoes and said, "Don't worry, dear. Everything will be fine." She thought she had broken me, but she didn't know that she had just started what I had been waiting many years to finish. Now sit back and relax, and I'll tell you this touching story from the very beginning. I've hosted more Sunday suppers than I can count. The kind where the roast is tender, the pie crust is buttery, and everyone leaves with a full belly and leftovers wrapped in foil. After 40+ years of marriage and countless gatherings at our little lakeside cottage, I thought I'd seen everything. Burnt turkeys, political arguments, even the time our son brought home a vegan girlfriend and I tried to cook tofu like a roast. Don't ask. She was polite, bless her, but I saw her slip half of it to the dog. Nothing had prepared me for this. It was early October. The leaves outside had just turned that perfect shade of gold and burnt orange, the kind that makes you want to drink cider and pretend your knees don't hurt when you crouch down to get the good china out of the bottom cupboard. My partner and I had been married since bell-bottoms were in style the first time. We'd fallen into a rhythm like an old jazz tune, predictable, a little scratchy, but still beautiful in its own way. That night, we'd set the table with our vintage stoneware, the ones with the blue ivy pattern, and pulled out the cloth napkins I only use when I'm feeling sentimental or passive-aggressive. I lit a few candles because ambience matters, even when the company makes your eyelid twitch. I made my best roast. Onions, carrots, rosemary sprigs fresh from the pot on the porch, and a pecan pie that would make you slap your mama. The whole cottage smelled like nostalgia and nutmeg. Our child, my pride and joy, arrived on time, which should have been the first clue something was off. They brought their spouse. Let's just call her the daughter-in-law, because saying her name feels like summoning something unpleasant. She's always been the kind of person who smiles like she's auditioning for a toothpaste commercial, and watches you like she's looking for cracks in your foundation. Tall, sleek, the sort of woman who glides instead of walks and thinks store-bought hummus counts as cooking. I always thought she was more performance than person, if you know what I mean. She brought a salad, with kale, and figs. Who puts figs in a salad? But I digress. Dinner started off as it always does. Small talk, passing plates, our child complimenting the roast like they always do, even though they know I don't need the flattery. My partner sat at the head of the table, carving meat with the same careful precision he used to slice bait back in his fishing days. Everything was smooth, familiar. Until it wasn't. I was mid-sip of my sweet tea when she leaned across the table, brushing a non-existent crumb from her blouse, and gave me a look. Not just any look. The kind of look a cat gives a bird before pouncing. Her smile stretched, syrupy sweet, and she tilted her head as if she was about to share a recipe or compliment my table runner. Instead, she whispered, soft as a prayer and twice as blasphemous, "I'm expecting your husband's child, you outdated hag." Now, I'm not a woman prone to dramatics. I didn't gasp. I didn't faint or throw my napkin in her face. No, ma'am. But I did pause, my fork midair with a green bean on the end, and let the words sink in like cold gravy. Then I laughed. Not a polite chuckle or a forced giggle. I laughed like I just remembered the punchline to an old joke. Like the time my cousin Mabel wore 2 different shoes to church and didn't notice until communion. It was that kind of laugh, bright, clear, and completely unexpected. She blinked. I could see the confusion flicker behind her eyes like a dying light bulb. She didn't get the reaction she wanted. She was expecting tears, shrieking, maybe a dramatic scene that would make her the center of attention. Instead, she got me, 65, tired of nonsense, and entirely too old to play anyone's fool. I leaned in, still smiling, and said, "Don't worry, darling. Everything will be just fine." And oh, bless her heart, she didn't know what to do with that. She leaned back slowly, her salad untouched, her glass of sparkling water trembling just a bit in her hand. For a moment, she looked almost uncertain, like she had dropped a match expecting fireworks and only got smoke. That moment right there, that little flicker of what just happened, was my first taste of satisfaction. Because here's the thing, I may not be young, I may not be glamorous, but I didn't make it through decades of marriage, motherhood, and menopause without learning how to keep my composure. I've stared down PDA moms, tax collectors, and my Aunt Doris when she accused me of stealing her lemon bar recipe. This little performance from my daughter-in-law? Child's play. Now, I didn't know what game she was playing. Not yet. But I knew one thing for sure. She had made a very big mistake. She thought she was about to turn my world upside down. She didn't realize she just lit the fuse on her own fireworks. And I was going to enjoy the show. Being with someone for over 40 years gives you a sixth sense for their habits. My partner and I had our routines down to a comfortable science. We'd walk the lakeside trail every morning. Him with his thermos of black coffee, me pointing out birds he pretended to care about. We'd come back. I'd pull out my paints while he puttered in the garden or flipped through one of those magazines that tell you how to prune a rose bush into a giraffe. Evenings were our quiet time. Soft jazz on the radio, books in hand, and the dog snoring at our feet. Nothing dramatic. Just the hum of a life built carefully over time. But then something shifted. First it was small. My partner began staying up later than usual. I'd hear the faint scratch of his pen in the next room, scribbling in that leather-bound journal he kept on the side table. When I asked what he was writing, he just said, "Clearing the cobwebs." Then he started disappearing after meals. Not long, 20-30 minutes tops. Said he needed a little air. "Helps me digest," he claimed, like we hadn't been eating pot roast for decades without issue. I chalked it up to getting older. We all need our little escapes. I took up painting hydrangeas, he took up journaling and mysterious post-dinner strolls. Seemed fair enough. But then our daughter-in-law started showing up alone. I didn't think much of it the first time. She arrived with a tray of store-bought muffins and a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. Said she wanted to spend more time with family and learn how I painted roses. Which was curious, considering she once said my studio smelled like old pennies and headaches. But I played hostess, poured the tea, nodded through her questions about brush technique, and showed her how I layered pinks and whites to get that delicate petal edge. She stayed for hours. And not once did she pick up a paintbrush. Instead, she floated around the cottage like she owned the place, peeking into my herb drawer, admiring the photos on the mantel, and every single time I stepped out of the room, I came back to find her chatting with my partner in hushed tones. Sometimes I caught her with a hand on his arm, or laughing just a little too loud at something he said. I didn't accuse. I observed. This continued for weeks. She'd pop in mid-morning, always alone, always unannounced. "I was in the area," she'd chirp, even though the closest thing to the area is a bait shop and a pumpkin patch. She'd stay long enough for awkward silences and sideways glances. I couldn't tell what was being said, but I could feel the tension collecting like dust in the corners. Then came the envelope. It was a Tuesday. I was fluffing the sofa cushions and caught sight of her through the window. She was out by the garden, talking to our handyman. He's a kind man, soft-spoken, polite, keeps to himself. He looked like he wanted to be anywhere else. She handed him a manila envelope, and he took it with all the enthusiasm of someone picking up a dead raccoon. He gave a quick nod, stuffed it into his jacket, and walked away without another word. She stood there watching him go, arms crossed, looking oddly satisfied. Then she turned, walked back inside, and complimented my tea like nothing happened. It was a Wednesday morning when I finally decided to do something I'd never done in over 4 decades of marriage. I snooped. My partner had just headed out for one of his so-called bike rides, which had lately become a bit too frequent and conveniently timed. Said he needed the exercise and fresh air. I just nodded and waved, pretending not to notice that the tires on that old Schwinn hadn't been pumped up in months. As soon as the door shut behind him, I put down my coffee and marched straight into his study. Now, I've always respected boundaries. We each had our corners of the house, and his study was sacred ground. Bookshelves lined the walls, mostly filled with manuals on landscaping, old mystery paperbacks, and a dusty globe I'd given him one Christmas. There was a faint scent of cedar and pipe tobacco, not because he smoked, but because he liked the smell and thought it gave the room character. The desk was tidy, too tidy. Pens lined up like soldiers, papers stacked a little too neatly. That alone raised my eyebrows. My partner was many things, but organized wasn't one of them. I opened the top drawer, half expecting to find nothing but paper clips and stamps, but tucked beneath a stack of blank notepads was a thin folder labeled in his handwriting, "Miscellaneous." That's when my heart started tapping out its own little drum solo. Inside the folder was a bank statement, not from our joint account, but from another bank entirely, one I didn't even recognize. The balance was surprising, to put it mildly. Not just a few hundred tucked away for emergencies. Thousands. Several entries showed large deposits, followed by equally large cash withdrawals. And the descriptions? Just vague nonsense. Miscellaneous reimbursement. Service refund. Vendor fee. I might not be a financial advisor, but I can spot shady bookkeeping when I see it. I took photos with my phone, hands trembling just enough to make me redo a few shots. The phone even made that little shutter sound, and I winced like I was shoplifting candy from the corner store. I was about to close the drawer when I had a thought. Our child's old hobby room had been quiet for years now. Mostly used for storing boxes, books, and the occasional half-finished puzzle. But something had been nagging at me about it lately. Just little things. A drawer left ajar. The faint smell of printer ink when no one had used the old printer in ages. So I made my way down the hall and pushed open the door. The room was as I remembered it. Pale blue walls, posters curling at the edges, a shelf filled with board games no one played anymore. But when I opened the drawer under the window seat, I found a stack of knitting books that didn't belong to me. I lifted them carefully, and there it was. A manila envelope with paperwork that didn't look like it had anything to do with yarn. Credit card applications, some already approved. Loan documents. Transaction summaries. All in our child's name. And the numbers, they were not the kind of figures that come from buying a new mattress or a laptop. These were big. That big. Bigger than what our child made in a year. My stomach twisted. I took more photos, slipping everything back exactly as I found it. My heart was racing like I was back in high school, sneaking into the drive-in with snacks stuffed in my purse. Only this time there wasn't a cute boy waiting in the car. Just a creeping sense that everything I thought I knew was starting to unravel, and I still had no idea where it would lead. A few days after my little photo session, I found myself pulling weeds in the side yard, pretending to be focused on the crabgrass but really just trying to clear my head. I hadn't told anyone what I'd found. Not yet. I needed time to think, to make sense of it all. But the universe must have decided I'd waited long enough, because that afternoon, I saw something that pushed everything into the light. It was late, maybe a little past 4. The kind of afternoon where the sun hits just right through the maple trees and makes everything look prettier than it deserves to. I heard voices, low, tense. Not the friendly sort of chatter you expect between neighbors or folks discussing tulip bulbs. I followed the sound, quiet as a mouse in my old garden clogs, until I reached the edge of the backyard and peeked around the rose trellis. There they were, our handyman and my daughter-in-law, standing near the garden shed. He had his arms crossed, shoulders hunched up like he wanted to disappear into his own shirt. She was talking fast, her voice sharp, her hands slicing through the air. I couldn't make out all the words, but I caught deal, promise, and keep it together. He kept shaking his head, and I could see the stress written all over his face. Finally, I stepped out, arms crossed, acting like I just happened to be checking on the compost. They both jumped. "Oh, I didn't see you there," she said, turning with that shiny smile she always wore like armor. "We were just..." "I wasn't talking to you," I cut in, turning to the handyman. "What's going on?" He looked at me like a man who'd swallowed a mouthful of gravel. His mouth opened, closed again. He looked at her, then back at me. His voice came out shaky. I can't keep doing this. I'm sorry, ma'am. Your partner's not who you think he is." And just like that, the dam broke. Not all at once, mind you. It came out in stops and starts, like he was finally peeling off a Band-Aid that had been on too long. He told me our child, my baby, had been gambling. Not poker or blackjack, but some kind of online fantasy sports nonsense. First it was small, just something to pass the time. Then the losses started piling up, and before anyone realized it, they were in deep. Real deep. Apparently, the daughter-in-law knew. She didn't stumble across it, she encouraged it. Cheered it on. Go big or go home, that kind of talk. She helped him open accounts, helped him hide the balances, and when he was drowning, she didn't throw him a lifeline. She threw him a contract. According to the handyman, she told my partner she'd keep quiet. She wouldn't tell anyone about the debts, the loans, or the consequences. But only if he played along with her story. The story that she was expecting his child. He was to keep up the charade. Let her whisper lies. Let her act like the jilted daughter-in-law and him the guilty, red-faced older man. And he did it. Out of fear. Out of shame. Out of that heavy kind of love parents carry when they think they're saving their children by taking the fall. And all the while, the child growing inside her? It wasn't my partner's. It was the handyman's. He said it with his eyes on the ground, his voice barely louder than a breeze. It wasn't supposed to happen. She said it wouldn't matter. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just stood there, my gardening gloves still on, dirt under my nails, and felt the pieces shift into place. It didn't make sense before. Now it did. Too much sense. And just like that, my life divided into a before and an after. Sometimes life hands you answers in whispers, and sometimes it just drops them in your bathroom like a gift wrapped in bad decisions. It was a Thursday. I just mopped the kitchen, made a fresh pitcher of lemonade, and was headed down the hallway to put away some towels when I noticed the guest bathroom door was still slightly ajar. Now, I hadn't been in there since the daughter-in-law's latest visit earlier that morning. She'd shown up again without warning, of course, all pearls and perfume, and talk about just checking in. Said she needed to use the restroom before heading to some yoga class. Left a ring around my good soap, by the way. I pushed the door open to give it a quick once-over. More habit than suspicion. And that's when I saw it. A white envelope, crumpled and slightly damp, jammed between the baseboard and the back of the toilet tank like someone had knocked it off the counter and forgot to look. Well, I picked it up, mostly thinking it was trash. But when I turned it over and saw the letterhead GeneWorks Diagnostics, I felt my heart stutter like a bad engine. I'm not a nosy woman by nature, but let me tell you, my fingers opened that envelope faster than I've ever opened a birthday card in my life. Inside was a folded document, the kind printed on heavy stock paper with lines and codes in little shaded boxes. It was a lab report, all right. And not just any lab report. It was a paternity test. I stared at the names typed in neat little rows. Mother, listed as the daughter-in-law. Child, unborn, via a sample collected during a prenatal test. Alleged fathers, 2, my child and my partner. The results were black and white. Clinical, cold. My child? Excluded. 0%. My partner? Also excluded. Not the father. The included match? The handyman. 99.7% probability. I sat down right there on the closed toilet lid and just held that paper in my lap, reading it over and over again like maybe if I looked long enough it would change. It didn't. She had tested the baby. And she knew the truth. This wasn't some accident or misunderstanding. This wasn't a moment of doubt or fear. She had gone out, gotten a sample, sent it off, and got those results back. And instead of coming clean, she tucked that truth away. Kept it hidden. Like an ace up her sleeve. Like a shield in case things went sideways. She had proof. She had known all along. And yet she kept prancing around our home, rubbing her belly like she was carrying royalty, dropping hints and whispering filth behind linen napkins. I folded the paper, slid it right back into the envelope, and tucked it into the deep pocket of my cardigan. The good cardigan. The one I wear when I need to keep my hands busy, so I don't strangle someone. She didn't know I had it. She didn't know that her get-out-of-jail-free card had slipped through her fingers. And I was already thinking, what exactly do you do when you hold the truth in your hands and the liar is still smiling across your dinner table? Turns out you get very quiet, very calm, and you start planning dinner. I've always believed there's nothing more disarming than a well-set table. There's power in good linen napkins and properly polished silverware. So when I decided it was time to have a little chat with the family, I didn't shout or storm around or demand answers. No, ma'am. I planned dinner. I called them all that Thursday morning. Just a little let's get together supper. Family time. Said I was craving company and wanted to make everyone's favorites. Of course, the daughter-in-law practically trilled her enthusiasm. My child sounded pleasantly surprised. My partner, well, he just said, sounds nice. In that measured voice he uses when he knows I'm up to something but hasn't figured out what yet. By Sunday, I had my plan as polished as the gravy boat. Roast beef cooked low and slow. Fluffy bread rolls with honey butter. Roasted root vegetables with rosemary from the windowsill pot. And dessert? My lemon squares, the ones with the shortbread base and just enough zest to make your eyebrows raise. I pulled out the good dishes, the crystal glasses, and even wore my old pearl necklace, which hadn't seen daylight since our granddaughter's graduation. They arrived right on time, all smiles. The daughter-in-law wore one of those floaty dresses that accidentally clung to her belly. She fussed with her hair in the hallway mirror, then walked into my dining room like she was hosting the event herself. I greeted her with a warm smile and a tighter-than-usual hug. My partner looked around warily. He knew something was coming. He just didn't know what. My child, bless them, was oblivious, chatting away about a work project and the new coffee shop they'd discovered. We made it through appetizers without incident. Even the main course went smoothly, though I did catch the daughter-in-law giving my partner a few pointed glances every time someone mentioned grandbaby. My partner focused on his plate like it might offer an escape route. Then came dessert. I placed the lemon squares on the table, poured fresh tea, and let the conversation lull. The wind picked up outside, nudging the wind chimes on the porch into soft melodic clinks. I cleared my throat, took a sip of tea and said, "You know, I've been reading a lot about genetics lately." Forks paused midair. My child looked up, interested. The daughter-in-law froze, her smile flickering at the edges. "Fascinating stuff," I continued. "You can learn so much even before a baby's born. Hair color, dimples, family traits, paternity." She went still. I reached beside me and pulled out the envelope, the one with the folded lab report tucked neatly inside. I laid it on the table between the dessert plates like it was a birthday card. The daughter-in-law's face drained of color so fast I worried she might faint onto the lemon squares. My child reached for the paper with slow, hesitant fingers and unfolded it. Their eyes scanned the lines, expression shifting from confusion to something harder. The kind of look someone gets when their whole world flips upside down. My partner didn't say a word, just stared at the tea in his cup like he wanted to disappear into it. The only sound in the room was the wind chimes and the distant hum of the refrigerator. Truth doesn't need a spotlight. It just needs a quiet moment to settle. And I'd given it exactly that. After my child read that lab report, you could feel the air go heavy. No one spoke right away. The daughter-in-law just sat there blinking, trying to calculate her next move like a chess player caught one square too deep. She opened her mouth, closed it, then gave a long shuddery sigh like she'd just been handed an award for Best Actress in a community theater production. "Well," she began, and I braced myself. "I didn't want things to happen this way," she said. "Your partner, he took advantage of me when I was vulnerable." I nearly snorted into my teacup. That poor man was still holding his fork midair like he'd forgotten what it was for. If he was involved in a grand seduction, he must have done it between trimming hedges and trying not to overcook the rice. She kept talking, the words coming quicker now. Said she'd been scared. Said she hadn't known what to do. Said she tried to protect everyone involved. If I hadn't known better, I'd have thought she was trying to wrangle a sympathy vote. But the script was tired and the audience wasn't buying it. My child didn't say much. Just stared at her, jaw set, eyes sharp. I could see the wheels turning. This wasn't just about a cheating spouse or a surprise paternity test. This was deeper. This was about betrayal stacked on top of betrayal. About being led down a path blindfolded, while someone else rearranged the signs. They didn't raise their voice. They didn't cry. They just asked her one question. "How long have you been using my account?" She tried to deflect. Something about misunderstandings, financial support, mutual decisions, but the truth was sitting there in black and white in a folder upstairs. Credit lines, loans, debt spiraling like a whirlpool. My child may have made some questionable choices, but what she'd done was beyond that. She had steered the ship, then blamed the storm. After dinner, she packed. She didn't slam drawers or storm around like in those made-for-TV dramas. She moved with the eerie calm of someone still trying to stay one step ahead. I watched her from the living room window as she loaded her suitcases into the trunk of her silver sedan. The same car she used for her little secret errands. The same one that had idled in my driveway more times than I could count while she smiled and stirred tea and pretended she cared about my roses. I met her at the door before she could get in the car. "I've spoken to someone," I said. "The handyman's sister. She's expecting you. Room above the bakery. She said she'd help you get back on your feet, for the baby's sake." She looked stunned. "You arranged that?" I nodded. "You said you wanted a new start. Make it an honest one." She didn't argue. Just stared at me for a moment, like she wasn't sure whether to say thank you or spit. But in the end, she just nodded once and got in the car. I stood on the porch, arms crossed, pearls still around my neck, and watched her drive off into the dark. The wind had picked up again. The wind chimes were singing, and I finally exhaled. The house was quiet again. Not the tense tiptoe around everyone kind of quiet we'd had for a while, but the kind that settles deep in your bones and makes space for peace. The kind where you can hear the coffee percolating in the morning, and it sounds like a small comfort instead of background noise. A few months after everything came to light, I opened the mailbox one afternoon and found a thick white envelope tucked between the power bill and a catalog for patio furniture. No return address, just my name in careful handwriting. Inside was a photo, a baby boy, tiny, swaddled, with a shock of dark curls and big brown eyes that somehow looked familiar. On the back, a note scribbled in the same tidy handwriting. His name is Elias. Thank you for giving me a second chance. That was all it said. No grand apology. No dramatic confessions. Just that one sentence. I stood there on the front porch holding that picture, the breeze flipping the envelope in my hand, and I couldn't decide whether to laugh or cry. So I just nodded to myself, tucked the photo into the cookbook drawer, and went inside to start a pot of tea. My child, bless them, didn't unravel the way I feared they might. They started attending support meetings twice a week. At first, they went quietly like they didn't want to be seen. But after a few weeks, they started coming home with stories, little victories, new friendships, the kind of insights that come from finally facing a mountain instead of trying to pretend it's a hill. And my partner, we fell back into rhythm, one small beat at a time. We talked more real conversations, not just about groceries or the weather. One afternoon he asked if I'd be interested in taking a pottery class with him at the community center. I nearly dropped my gardening gloves. He'd never once expressed interest in art that didn't grow out of soil. But we signed up, and every Tuesday evening we sat side by side shaping lopsided bowls and laughing at how bad we both were at it. We weren't rebuilding from ruins. We were simply dusting off something that had been there all along. The best part, though? My child met someone new. It started slow. Just a coffee here, a walk there. But over time, I watched them light up in a way I hadn't seen in years. There was a softness in their face again, a spark. And a few years later, they welcomed a little girl into the world. I held her in my arms the day she was born. Tiny, warm, perfect. And all I could think was how quiet love can be when it's honest. No lies. No secrets. Just love. I learned something in all of this. Revenge doesn't always look like what people think it does. It's not throwing dishes or shouting in the driveway. Sometimes it's a dinner table and a folded piece of paper. Sometimes it's watching the truth land like a feather instead of a hammer. And sometimes revenge isn't about tearing someone down. It's about making sure they can't tear you apart. I didn't destroy anyone. I didn't need to. I just took my family back. One truth at a time.
Share your thoughts in the comments. Have you ever uncovered a big family secret? How did you handle it? If you liked the story, subscribe to the channel and give us a like.